The left wants you to know that grave sickness is spreading across the nation and it could destroy all of us. I'm not talking about COVID-19. Nope. White supremacy. What? Friends, it's time for Hold the Line.
We've just witnessed images that we've never imagined, images that now we'll never forget. A violent assault on the U.S. Capitol, assault on our democracy, on our Capitol. A violent attack that threatened lives and took lives. We know now we must confront and defeat political extremism, white supremacy, and domestic terrorism. Welcome to Hold the Line. I'm Buck Sexton. That was President Joe Biden at the National Prayer Breakfast highlighting the threat of white supremacy. If you listen to the left these days, you'd be led to believe that this is the most pressing threat America faces, maybe after climate change, which of course is going to destroy the entire planet, but that's a little ways off. In fact, the threat is so great that even the U.S. military, this is actually happening, taking steps to purge its ranks of the issue. Earlier this week, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin ordered a stand down, meaning a pause in activity, of all branches over the next 60 days to address this grave threat. The Defense Secretary promised to, quote, rid our ranks of racists and extremists. Pentagon spokesman John Kirby cited the June 6th riot at Capitol Hill as the, quote, wake-up call that prompted the Secretary of Defense's order. Of course, thousands of U.S. soldiers are currently in the U.S. Capitol still in order to combat the threat of white supremacy. At least that's what we've been told. That's what Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker said. As we reported last week, Pritzker tweeted, we must root out the dark forces of racism, white supremacy, and disinformation that have created this moment. But until we do that, our extraordinary Illinois National Guard troops will deploy with honor. So you see, it wasn't a group of hooligans, idiots, and lowlifes who rioted at the Capitol, but it was somehow this massive conspiracy, in fact, a global conspiracy, as we'll get into in a moment, of white supremacy on the march. This is stunning. Now, let's start with this. How many of you have actually met a white supremacist? I'm guessing very few. I've actually never met one, and I've met jihadists, I've met people of extreme ideologies, particularly during my time in the CIA and at the NYPD. I've never come across a white supremacist. I'm not saying they don't exist, of course they do, but they're among the most maligned, and rightfully so. They're among the most isolated, despised, and hated people within American society, and anybody who's being honest knows there are very, very few of them. Right? But we're told that this is an imminent threat against our very nation, that they could at any moment perhaps engage in another insurrection, another coup, and overthrow the government. Where are all these white supremacists that they're talking about right now? Well, for one thing, the media's worked very hard to create a claim that people who were protesting in D.C. on January 6th were part of a movement of white supremacy. Not a movement that was about feelings of a stolen election or allegations of voter fraud or any of those other issues. You can't even talk about that now. You'll be banned. I'll probably have to bleep that. You can't even talk about election questions. They weren't there for that. They were there for white supremacy. Yeah, so they were there to oppose the Democrats who elected the oldest white guy any of us have ever seen in the presidency. This was, what? None of this makes any sense. None of this makes any sense. But they say it anyway. And they expand the definition of white supremacy to include so many things that you are shocked by. But let's start with, here is a member of Congress, and we could have picked countless sound bites like this. A member of Congress, G.K. Butterfield, saying that what happened on Capitol Hill when there was a riot, which we've condemned in the clearest possible terms, was white supremacy.
Let us be clear. The mob violence we witnessed on January 6th is squarely rooted in white supremacy, rooted in deep-seated racism that continues to permeate civil society. Though not the only culprit in this uprising, it is clear to me, it is clear to us that President Donald J. Trump personally incited this insurrection, causing major damage to the Capitol and to our democracy.
President Donald Trump is personally guilty of inciting not just an insurrection, but a white supremacist insurrection. with what as the goal exactly? Put aside for a moment the lack of a factual basis for claiming that President Trump was actually calling for this to happen. What was the goal of it? Well, if you listen to the left these days, what you'll see, if you listen to Democrats, members of Congress, people who are in the media, they'll refer to a lot of things they don't like as white supremacy. The same way that in different periods in our history, the left will refer to anything they disapprove of as fascism. White supremacy has now become a term for anything that they dislike or disdain, even when it has nothing to do with racist ideology of the superiority of any individual group of people. White supremacy can be any number of things. You say, well, hold on, what do I mean? Opening schools, rather, is a form of white supremacy.
There are decisions to be made. You stand on the lawn of the U.S. Capitol as people break down barriers and head to the doors. Do you follow? You stand at the governor's mansion, the crowd breaks down barriers to enter the grounds. Do you follow, or do you choose a different way? We must not ignore the culture of white supremacy and white privilege. We have seen it in the Free to Breathe, Reopen Everything, rodeos, and rallies that received county commissioner support. They complain their children are suicidal without school or sports. As a father daily surviving the suicide of my son, I find these statements ignorant and another expression of white privilege.
Opening schools and wanting life to go back to normal for everybody is white privilege and white supremacy. I mean, we could find endless examples of this. And if you think that this Al-Qaeda level threat, which is how it's being talked about by people including the former CIA director of counterterrorism in an op-ed this week, by other national security state officials, people are increasingly realizing that a lot of morons work for the federal government and get very senior roles in the federal government. Doesn't mean anything. So I guess at least that point of clarity is worth something. But they think that the white supremacist movement needs to be treated like Al-Qaeda because it's that level of foe. It could actually destroy our entire country and our society. And somehow, unlike Al-Qaeda, which was groups operating here and there in the shadows, white supremacy, they tell us, is everywhere. It's in school admissions policy. It's in every aspect of our society that the left disapproves of. It's in finance, it's in housing, it's in everything, right? You say, well, if it's in everything, what exactly are we talking about and how does this make any sense? And if you're wondering, is this even limited to America, here is the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres talking about global white supremacy and the Capitol Hill riot, of course.
In Europe, the United States and elsewhere, white supremacists are organizing and recruiting across borders, shamelessly flaunting the symbols of the Nazis and their murderous ambitions. We saw shocking examples in this nation's capital in recent weeks.
This is the big threat in the world right now. Okay, China is going to, continue to steal all of our intellectual property and is making noises about taking Taiwan and getting stronger and more belligerent all the time with its neighbors. But the real concern that we should have on a national security basis is white supremacy. These liberals are insane, and they're not liberal at all, as you know. All right, after the break, Congresswoman Liz Cheney survived the effort yesterday to remove her from House leadership after she voted to impeach President Trump last month. We got more on that and the split within the GOP with our friend, Ned Ryun. Have you ever wanted to invest in real estate, but you didn't have the time to do it on your own? I felt exactly like that until about a year ago. I've always loved the idea of real estate investments, but I didn't know how to invest in real estate while making sure that I followed through on all my obligations. I'm crazy busy. I'm sure you're crazy busy too. Job, family, a lot of things going on. How was I ever going to take the time to invest in real estate on my own and not make some big mistakes? Well, then I met my friends at Done For You Real Estate. They took all of the guesswork out of it for me. They found me an awesome property. They rented it out for me right away. They managed the tenant for me, and now I get a check every month like clockwork. Don't wait another second to see if my buddies at Done For You Real Estate can do for you what they did for me. Visit doneforyoubuck.com to see how it works. Again, that's doneforyoubuck.com. Start this right now. They'll take you through your real estate investment journey. You'll be amazed at how easy and how successful this will be. doneforyoubuck.com. House Republicans voted last night to allow Wyoming Representative Liz Cheney to keep her position as GOP conference chairwoman. The vote wasn't particularly close, with just 61 Republicans voting to remove Cheney from her post, while 145 voted to allow her to stay. The vote was prompted by Cheney's decision last month to vote to impeach President Donald Trump. Here's what she had to say after yesterday's vote.
We really did have a terrific vote tonight, a terrific time this evening, laying out what we're going to do going forward, as well as making clear that we're not going to be divided and that we're not going to be in a situation where people can pick off any member of leadership. It was a very resounding acknowledgement that we need to go forward together and that we need to go forward in a way that helps us beat back the really dangerous and negative Democrat policies.
Potential shakeup in GOP leadership was avoided. Was it the right move, and what does it mean for the GOP going forward? Here to discuss, to lay it all out, our friend, the CEO of American Majority, Ned Ryun. There he is. How you doing, buddy?
Good to be with you, Buck. Yeah, disappointing actually last night for a variety of reasons. You know, when Dad was in Congress, I always banked on Republicans snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, and you could always bank on them. Let's try and figure out what the dumbest thing is that we can do.
At least they're consistent.
And be pleasantly surprised when they didn't do the dumbest thing you could think of. But look, give us some perspective about last night. Here you have somebody, Liz Cheney, who's number 3 in leadership. She's at 10% in her reelect right now, down 30 points to initial challenger, who, quite frankly, is an abysmal member of leadership. She raised a tenth of the money that Kevin McCarthy and Scalise raised last year in helping try and reelect the incumbents. Even worse, Buck, she went out of her way as number 3 in leadership to actually give money to fund the primary opponent of Massey in Kentucky. And I think the thing that's disappointing for me is as they rallied around this woman who's at 10% in her reelect, because she voted to impeach one of the most popular Republican presidents we've had in all time at 95% approval rating with Trump over really, I think, what is, as I think will hopefully come out in this ridiculous Senate trial, nothing to do with anything revolving around facts. And she went out of her way to vote to impeach Trump. And she said it was a vote of conscience, Buck. But I really, I don't think this is too cynical to think. She deeply resented the fact that Trump was the antithesis of the Cheney nation-building foreign intervention approach to politics. And she was going to stick it to Trump because she disagreed with his policies, especially on foreign relations and especially on Afghanistan.
So were you expecting there to be more Republicans, though, than the 46, if memory serves, who voted to remove her from? Remember, for everyone at home, she's not being removed from Congress. She was being removed from a leadership position. You know, this is a lot of inside baseball stuff for Capitol Hill. But what do you think about the naysayers here?
Well, I got to tell you, Buck, my dad, when he was in Congress, was involved in leadership race back in 2002 for caucus chair. When leadership inserts itself into leadership elections and decides that they're going to back someone in those races, I assume Kevin McCarthy was actually whipping on behalf of Liz Cheney. In the House, leadership can make your life miserable. And unless you feel like you've got an absolute shot at taking somebody out, leadership coming and whipping on behalf of Liz Cheney probably dissuaded some of those fence sitters from going all the way. So I think that was part of the dynamic that's taking place. But I will remind people, the House Republican caucus can be as dumb as they want to be, but look at next year's primaries when she's already down 30 points to her challenger. The thing I will say about this, Buck, but this really is kind of a microcosm of where I think the Republican Party has to decide, where does it want to go? Does it want to go back to 2004 to a neocon, foreign intervention, nation-building approach, or does it want to embrace the Trump approach moving forward of saying, we're going to actually be America first. We're going to embrace the working class and actually prioritize the interests of the American people. And I think this is kind of a microcosm of that struggle. And quite frankly, a very disappointing outcome if we're thinking this might indicate which way the party's going to go.
Ned, switching gears for a second here, the House voted to strip Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of her seats on the House committee. Here's what Speaker Pelosi said about it earlier today.
Today, the House will vote to remove Representative Greene from her seat on Education and Labor and the Budget Committees. It's just so unfortunate. You would think that the Republican leadership in the Congress would have some sense of responsibility to this institution, as they did when they did not seat Representative King of Iowa 2 years ago. For some reason, they have chosen not to go down that path.
Well, I have a standing rule that's never listen to Nancy Pelosi, especially when she's speaking in tones of moral indignation. But what do you think about this situation with MTG? There we go.
Ridiculous. If we're going to remove somebody from a committee or committees because of something they said a couple years ago on conspiracy theories, which, by the way, she's now denounced, right? QAnon. She said, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have said that. If we're going to now remove people for believing in conspiracy theories, we should remove most of the Democratic caucus who have never once apologized for pushing the Russian collusion conspiracy theory. This has nothing to do with really about this one, conspiracy theory. It's about trying to punish the Republicans and paint them into a certain corner and a light. And it's again, yeah, right. Pelosi, what you leave Ilhan Omar, an open anti-Semite, on some very important committees in the House, and you want to remove her from her committees when, in fact, you guys were pushing conspiracy theories for years that were unfounded and had no basis in fact.
You think that is it arguable, at least, Ned, that it's a healthy thing for, given what just happened in the election, the GOP members of Congress to duke it out a little bit here and sort of see who's going to be calling the shots and who's going to be leading the party? Or do you feel like this is just counterproductive?
No, I think it is. I think this is going to be one of the most important conversations about where the Republican Party is headed. I'd hope that Trump would win his second term and that we'd have a really rigorous debate on actually solidifying America first inside the Republican Party. Now, this is a debate that has to happen. In fact, this is the best time to have it. The time to not have it is in the primary season of 2022 and really get into a bloody, civil war inside the Republican Party. Again, I would argue at least the 10 Republicans that voted for impeachment should be taken out, and perhaps a few senators. But if you're really going to have a rigorous discussion, now's the time to have it in the beginning of 2021. Which direction do we want to go? Who should be leading the party? And what agenda should we be advancing? No, now's the perfect time to be having it.
What are you thinking about Ron DeSantis these days?
Boy, I got to tell you, I had questions about him, but his move on big tech the other day, I hope 26 other Republican governors actually follow his lead and that we take a real shot at breaking the monopolies of big tech and removing these private corporations from being the actual arbiters of speech and information flow online. What a move. And I got to tell you right now, if I were to lay money on it, I would say he's one of the top guys for the 2024 nomination if he keeps this going.
Ned Ryun, everybody. Ned, always good to see you, my man. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Buck.
AOC making headlines again for discussing her favorite topic, herself. This time it's a somewhat fact-challenged account of her experience during the Capitol Hill riot. We'll have more on that with PragerU's Will Witt when we return. You never thought COVID could cost you your home, right? It might just end up being that way, though, because cybercrime is up 75%, and there's a really serious cybercrime you have to worry about when it comes to your home title theft. That's right, cybercriminals, foreign and domestic, are now after our homes, and it's a lot easier than you'd think. The title documents to our homes are online now. The thief finds your home's title and forges your signature on a quitclaim deed stating you sold your home to him. Then he takes out loans on your home and leaves you in debt. You won't know about this usually until late payments or eviction notices arrive in the mail. Insurance doesn't cover you, and neither do common identity theft programs. That's why I protect my home with Home Title Lock. The instant Home Title Lock detects someone tampering with my home's title, they help shut it down. Go to HomeTitleLock.com and register your address to see if you're already a victim of this crime and don't even know it yet. And use code RADIO to get 30 free days of protection. That's code RADIO at HomeTitleLock.com. Again, code RADIO at HomeTitleLock.com.
I jump into my bathroom and I close the door. And I just keep hearing these bang, bang, bang. I open the door when all of a sudden I hear that whoever was trying to get inside got into my office. And then I just start to hear these yells of, "Where is she?" This was the moment where I thought everything was over. I mean, I thought I was going to die.
Congresswoman Alexandria OcasioCortez, or Ocasio-Smollett, according to Twitter right now, they're making fun of her there. She took to Instagram live on Monday to break down the exaggerated sob story about what she calls her near-death experience during the Capitol riots last month. Well, it turns out the dramatic story she broadcasted to some 100,000 plus people didn't really add up, or at least it left some thinking perhaps more occurred around her than it really did. Many on Twitter have posted maps of where AOC's office is, noting she wasn't even in the Capitol building when the riots occurred. And even other members of Congress are calling her out, like South Carolina Representative Nancy Mace, who tweeted out the following. AOC made clear she didn't know who was at her door. Breathless attempts by media to fan fiction new flames are dangerous. Or fictitious new flames, rather, are dangerous. My office is 2 doors down. Insurrectionists never stormed our hallway. Egregious doesn't even begin to cover it. For more on the social media influencer disguised as a member of Congress, let's bring in Prager University personality Will Witt. Will, good to see you. Thanks for joining.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
So let's just start with this, because I as somebody who I know does a lot of work online and has a big digital audience, you might find this one interesting. AOC told her team, tweeted out to her team, AOC supporters, to ask them to report anyone who tweets hashtag Alexandria OcasioCortez, so Twitter and Facebook can take down any post criticizing or fact-checking her. Now we have politicians actively calling out to their constituents, their voters, supporters, whatever, to be a part of the silencing mob online. What do you think?
I mean, what a ridiculous thing, all of this happening. To think that the craziest part to me is that even after all of the evidence, the pictures of the drawings of where she actually was, the other testimonials from people saying she wasn't there, she still gets away with it. She still had a tweet that she just put out, I think it was yesterday evening, talking about this, and it got 250,000 likes, basically calling anyone who says that she's a liar, a horrible person. And that's like, it's insane that they can still get away with lying so viciously, and the mainstream media is on top of them, the big tech is with them, but normal people who see the truth have no way of actually getting our voices really out there.
Do you feel like AOC is able to just evade any accountability for whatever she says online, given the fact that she's got millions of supporters who will just march in lockstep? She says, go and complain about people, get them deplatformed, they'll do it. Feels like she doesn't really want to hear the voice of the people, only the people who agree with her.
Yeah, she only wants to hear the voice of her constituents, the voice of the people who already think she's a great person. But if you're a constituent or someone who disagrees with her, then she wants to shut you down. I mean, having her staff members or whatever go out and find people to report tweets, I mean, how are you that much of a baby? Like, the amount of attacking that they are doing to people like me, PragerU, other conservative influencers on a daily basis, I'm not asking my PragerU fans, hey, go report tweets where they say, I have horrible hair or something. It's like, if you're going to get into this field, you have to be able to deal with the smoke. And if you lie, you should be first going out and saying, okay, I lied and I want to go back on it, and not just getting people to report tweets and try and change your story.
Are you seeing a trend here as well with, look, the Capitol Hill riot? I know you've condemned it, I've condemned it, but it seems like there are members of the media and of the Democratic Party who are taking this steps beyond what the facts actually were in the case of the riot. I mean, AOC very clearly is trying to tell a story where she felt like, or she's telling people this so that they will assume that she believed and was in danger from a mob at her door. The person who was banging on her door is actually a Capitol police officer who was trying to get to her to get her to safety. So the exaggeration is weaponized for political purposes here, Will, and I'm just wondering what it's going to take for people to be able to focus back on what happened without making it seem worse than it actually was.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much exaggeration with it. I saw videos of these Capitol Hill rioters going in there, and there were videos of them afterwards where they're actively picking up trash of a mess that they made while they were at the Capitol. So, of course, that a lot of the things they did were horrible, but to exaggerate it in this way that AOC is doing is only trying to paint conservatives in a worse light than we already are. This event in a conservative standpoint is one of the worst PR things that's really happened to conservatives in a long time. And so the left are taking advantage of this and trying to put all conservatives in this box, say we're all this same way, and then exaggerate it so that conservatives can never win any heart or mind ever again in America.
Will, have you personally or has PragerU been dealing with a lot of cancellation attempts? I mean, has the monster of wokeness come for you as well? You guys do a lot of educational stuff as well as conservative stuff.
Yeah, oh yeah, we've gotten it every single day. There's a new organization called the Gravel Institute or Gravel Institute that's now the counter to PragerU that's trying to put out videos against PragerU, and we get attacked daily by the left, and then, we get silenced off of social media. PragerU is still having a lawsuit right now against YouTube for restricting our videos. I put out videos that have been deleted. PragerU's account on Twitter got suspended. I mean, these things are happening all the time. And then the left wants to say these things aren't happening, don't cry about it. And it's like, if you look at any big conservatives page, even small conservatives, it's happening to everyone. They're getting silenced on social media. They're getting death threats and horrible stuff. And it's just not the same that you see happening to leftist accounts.
Where do you see younger conservatives going to try to either follow influencers like yourself, but also some of the older luminaries of the movement, people that you and I both grew up reading and learning from? How are they connecting with that?
I think that they're going to have to go online. I mean, it really seems like the social media is not the way to do it. I mean, right now at PragerU, we're really involved right now with pushing people to actually go to our website. You go to PragerU.com, you sign up for our emails, and then you can get all the information there, because it's looking like on social media, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, that people aren't going to be able to get the same amount of information. And even if these big tech companies allow us to stay, they're shadow banning us, or they're limiting our reach. I mean, this is why Steven Crowder is now having a lawsuit with Facebook as well. So I can't 100% answer your question and say where people are going to go to find the information, but I'm hoping that it's an open internet and people can still go on and find the information they need.
It was supposed to be an open internet, Will, but as you and I know, not the way it feels these days. It's been tough. Will, great work, man. Thanks so much for joining. Good to see you. We hope you come back.
Hey, thank you.
School's back in session, kind of. New CDC guidelines say it's safe to begin in-person learning without vaccinating teachers. But will the teachers' unions, powerful as they are, comply? We'll discuss that and the hypocritical lockdowns of COVID with senior editor of Reason magazine, Robby Soave, when we come back. While teachers' unions and school systems clash over what's considered safe to return to in-person learning, new guidance from the CDC might just speed up the process of getting students back in classrooms.
There is increasing data to suggest that schools can safely reopen, and that safe reopening does not suggest that teachers need to be vaccinated in order to reopen safely.
You heard it there, the CDC director saying point blank that vaccinating teachers is not a requirement to reopening schools. So that means class is going to be back in session, right? Wrong. Across the country, several major unions in big cities like Chicago, Los Angeles, and San Francisco are still refusing to send teachers back to school until every single one of them is vaccinated. And some people are saying until the kids are vaccinated too. So how long is this standoff going to go on for? And why isn't the Biden administration, who promised to follow the science, stepping in and taking charge? Here to discuss all this is senior editor at Reason magazine, Robby Soave. Robby, we are a country lacking in reason these days, so I feel like business for you should be good.
We are lacking in reason. You're entirely correct. I don't know why, but it's so hard to open these schools despite overwhelming evidence that you're not going to have super spreader events, that kids don't significantly transmit the virus, that they don't put their teachers at risk. You've had a lot of schools that are open, private schools, even some public schools in rural areas. They've been open for months. And guess what? You don't see a lot of COVID cases. You don't see the kind of widespread infection that people warned about. So it can be done safely. It can be done safely right now, tomorrow, yesterday. And still they're fighting tooth and nail. And by they, I mean the teachers' unions to prevent it.
Jen Psaki was asked today during the White House press conference, hey, why won't blue-collar Joe Biden, who cares so much about the kids, sure, why won't he step in and just tell the teachers' unions to get their acts together? Let's hear it.
If it comes down to a binary choice, who would the president choose, the kids or the teachers?
I think that's a little bit unfair how you pose that question, but I will say the president believes schools should be open. Teachers want schools to be open. Families want schools to be open, but we want to do it safely.
Just dancing around it. Believe schools should be open. How about Tell the darn teachers unions to stop refusing to get off their butts, get off the couch, and go teach the kids.
Yeah, I can't believe the easy answer to that question was not the kids. Obviously, the kids should be prioritized because really the choice isn't between, they're making it seem like, well, it's their lives are at stake. But I'm not saying the teachers should have to teach in the classroom. They shouldn't be teachers then. If they really think their lives are that much at risk, and the evidence doesn't say that they are, then why are we required to pay them? If they don't want to do that job, they don't have to do that job. But then they shouldn't have guaranteed salaries and health benefits and protections. That's the issue. This is the only class of employees that has managed to extort the public, the state, to continue being paid, even though the product they're offering is deficient. We know virtual learning is just an appalling failure for many, many kids, and they're still getting paid. So they have every incentive to fight reopening forever. I mean, to listen to what the unions have said, they've said that they will oppose, in many major cities, they'll oppose going back to class until, if COVID is any threat whatsoever.
Yep.
And I'm sorry, we'll have the pandemic under control, I expect and I hope, in the coming months. But there will still be some people who get coronavirus and some people even who die from it in fall. So you're saying still under those circumstances we can't go back? That's crazy.
Yeah, Robbie, what we're seeing here is people who are leveraging a zero risk expectation or a zero risk demand to do their jobs, to allow people to have individual freedom back. This is what I meant at the very beginning this is now turned fully irrational. We don't operate this way as a society with a whole range of other issues, right? And we sit around and people at the beginning were making arguments about things like we could make the speed limit 20 miles an hour. That would unquestionably save thousands, really tens of thousands of lives every year. But people are like, we're going to go faster in our cars, right? We're not in a society where everything is devoted to zero risk for everyone. The teachers unions are in fact demanding zero risk. I mean, even mini Mike Bloomberg's out there saying, what the heck is this? Play it.
It's time for Joe Biden to stand up and say, the kids are the most important things, important players here. And the teachers just are going to have to suck it up and stand up and provide an education. Otherwise, these kids have no chance whatsoever.
Robbie, they're picking the unions over the kids. We can keep seeing Democrats do these segments about it, and Joe Biden really does want schools to open at some point, but they're not opening those schools, are they?
Yeah, I'm sure in his heart of hearts he does want schools to reopen, but not if it means ticking off the teachers unions, because they're too important of a political base of support for the Democratic Party. They have so much power. They're so important to Democrats, and you can't risk making an enemy. If you're a Democrat, you can't risk making an enemy of Randy Weingarten, the head of the American Federation of Teachers. I mean, we've seen that time and time again. Cory Booker used to be, he was wildly in favor of school choice. He worked with Betsy DeVos before she was education secretary on boards of charter school advancements, that kind of thing. When he ran for president, he had to run from that position. He had to pretend he'd never held it. And again, I bet, I would believe, it wouldn't surprise me if he still actually thinks charter schools and school choice is a good thing. He just knows he can't say it because you'd get killed. You'd get so punished by the teachers union. That's really, really a problem. It's a problem for our kids. Our kids are coming last. Are their considerations, their needs are just not even part of the equation. And it's so sad. There are kids who are killing themselves. Suicide rates.
Yes, literally killing themselves. Yeah,
literally killing themselves. And it's this has been a year of their lives now. It's not just a couple weeks, but a full year. Many kids, especially those who rely on the public school system, to have been out of school, which is the hub of their social life, where they see their friends, where their activities are. So it's not just about the long-term consequences in terms of their reading and math scores will be down, their college prospects, their employment prospects, all of that is going to be a train wreck, but also just their immediate
emotional
trauma.
Psychological damage, which is very real. I also, we talk about the extent of this, how long this is going to go on. Robbie, I don't know if you know this, I was saying 6 months ago, just wait, the day will come when they tell us it has to be 2 masks. And now we're there with Fauci saying that the date is going to come. I've been saying they're going to tell you it'll be N95 masks are the real deal, which, by the way, scientifically is true, but they just weren't saying it before because it complicated the narrative of, wear a Biden-Harris kerchief and you're a good person who's going to stop the disease from spreading. That was the story, not that N95 masks are clearly, scientifically more effective, no matter who you talk to. But now we're also being told with the vaccines that even after here's Jen Psaki in the press conference.
It's not just a vaccine, is obviously an incredible medical breakthrough, and we want every American to have one. But even after you're vaccinated, social distancing, wearing masks are going to be essential, and we'll need to continue communicating about that through health and medical experts.
I just wanted some quick math here, Robbie. So after people receive a vaccine that is 95% effective based upon large clinical trials, data and science, for a virus that is over 99% survivable, we are still going to have to walk around with face masks on and avoiding other human beings as possible vectors of this plague. At what point do people realize this is totalitarian madness? I don't know when the American people wake up from this.
Yeah, I would have hoped that they would have realized sooner. It's taking a while for people to wake up to this. This is exactly the wrong message to be sending. Why? I mean, that's going to discourage vaccination, is it not? If the health experts, the government is saying, well, you still have to continue doing all the horrible things we have to continue doing now, which is not true. It's not scientific. We know, they'll say, at first they said, well, if you've gotten COVID and you've recovered from it, you might still get reinfected. But everyone who actually knew anything about disease knew that was like extremely unlikely. It's probably happened like 12 times on planet Earth. It's the same with this. We know the vaccine, there's not been an explicit study of it, but we have every reason to expect, and all prior science would suggest to us, that the vaccine not only prevents serious infection, but will significantly reduce transmission. Yes, it's possible, it's conceivable, it'll happen somewhere on Earth, on this planet of billions of people, that someone will still spread the disease or get the disease after having been vaccinated. We can't have perfect 100% safety. No activity is that safe. But broadly speaking, the vaccine is a ticket back to a normal life. We should be emphasizing that once you're vaccinated and once you've waited the week or the 2 weeks or whatever it is, you can start doing things normal. Maybe we don't have mosh pit at a concert is the first thing we do, but you can see your friends again. You can go outside. You can go outside now, honestly, without a mask.
Yeah, their desire to control is going against the critical messaging of more people getting the vaccine, which will save huge numbers of lives, by saying stuff like, well, you still have to do all this annoying crap that they pretend we're all, the reason we still have cases is because we don't do it enough anyway. But Robbie, as you see, this gets me very fired up. Please talk to all your liberty-minded friends and tell them that we got to end this madness. And also, I'll see you at the anti-intervention in some Middle Eastern country for no good reason protests that the Biden administration is going to force us to. So, Robbie, good to see you.
Good to see you. We're the only consistent people at those gatherings.
See you, man. Take care. It's almost time for a rapid-fire look at some of the stories we haven't gotten to yet, but need to get to. That's the quick hits, and that is next. These days, being prepared for the unknown is more important than ever. I'm sure you've noticed the world we live in is anything but predictable, and we can all benefit from something reliable right about now. What could be more reliable than real gold and silver? I'm talking about real gold and silver you can actually hold right in your hands. Call the Oxford Gold Group now and learn how easy it is to get real gold and silver sent securely directly to your home, or how you can have real gold and silver placed in your IRA or 401k. Just call the Oxford Gold Group at 833-600-GOLD and ask for your free guide on owning gold and silver. Again, call the Oxford Gold Group right now at 833-600-GOLD. The Oxford Gold Group is the only gold company I trust. Call them right now. It's who I get my gold and silver from. It's who I recommend you get yours from. And take action today. Don't wait to see what inflation does. Don't wait to see if the market tanks. Prepare now with real gold and silver. 833-600-GOLD. One more time, that's the Oxford Gold Group at 833-600-GOLD. John Kerry wants you to know he's more important than you. And Florida Governor Ron DeSantis proves once again he's got more sense than his big blue state counterparts. Those stories are coming up right now in Quick Hits. Let's start with U.S. Ambassador to the Davos elites, John Kerry. That should be his official title. I like that one. So the people that tell you about climate change, they're very serious about it. They'll do anything to save the world, because that's what they say. They say it's an existential threat. I mean, we all have to take this very seriously. We've got to do anything we can do to save ourselves. Here's the problem, though. Here's the issue with all this. We keep seeing their behavior. We see the behavior of someone like John Kerry, and we find out, oh, he doesn't take this seriously at all when it comes to what he does. The rest of us, though, the hoi polloi, if you will, the plebs, we're supposed to take bicycles everywhere, make sure you turn the lights off, I don't know, only flush once a week, all kinds of things, anything to save the planet. But we have John Kerry here actually saying why he took a private plane to a place to get an award in Iceland for climate change work.
It's the only choice for somebody like me. The time it takes me to get somewhere, I can't sail across the ocean. I have to fly to meet with people and get things done.
It's the only choice for me. I can't, take my 76-foot yacht. I mean, the crew, they need their time off. And he actually does have a 74, 76-foot yacht. He's got 2 planes, private planes of his own. It's good when you can marry a very, very rich woman who got a lot of money from her ex-husband. That's one way to fund your political career for sure. But John Kerry, it's called a commercial flight. People take them all the time. It's okay. The seats might be a little icky. They don't give you champagne right away. You have to do the annoying, will you assist in the exit row? Yes. You can't just shake your head. You got to say yes out loud. But he won't do any of that. He absolutely will not. So. He's too important, you see. He's saving the world. And then there's Joe Biden, who, when he remembers what time of day it is, he's also, or what year it is, he's also very important, of course, and he wants the impeachment of Donald Trump to continue. Here's what he says.
They didn't ask me whether or not he should have been impeached. He was impeached by the House. And it has to move forward. Otherwise, it would come off as farcical, what this was all about.
It is farcical. It's not going to do anything. It's not worth anybody's time. It's the second time Democrats have done this, cheapening the whole impeachment process along the way, and they will actually find themselves, sure enough, regretting this. Just give it some time. The Democrats, just like, remember when the Democrats got rid of the filibuster for judicial nominees? And some of us who like to talk about things like principle and consistency said, I believe that they will regret this at some point. They'll decide this was not a good move after all. Yes. And then, sure enough, that was what happened. The same thing will happen with this in time. You will see the impeachment, the lowering of the bar for impeachment is going to come back to haunt Democrats. Just wait. You'll remember I told you, Governor Ron DeSantis is the man. I'm just going to say it. He is the man, and he's done the best job of any governor in the country making sure that Florida is balancing out. It's not that it's wide open and they're having crazy parties and nobody cares about COVID. No, they take it seriously, but they balance out responsibilities to freedom and to business with reasonable precautions given the realities of the COVID-19 virus. And he points out that there are also lives by making that honest weighing of competing goods. There are lives that were saved in his state.
We've saved the livelihoods of so many people. I think you'll have less suicide deaths, less drug abuse deaths, less deaths of despair in Florida because we were open. And I think a lot of the lockdowners lost sight of that. We are less than the national average for per capita COVID mortality. 25 states are higher than us.
In the middle of the pack. Kind of like Sweden, by the way. Also in the middle of the pack for Europe for COVID mortality, despite never also embracing the extreme lockdowns. But the lockdowners just don't want to hear it. They were right because they're so smart. That's what they think. And they listen to Fauci. That's it for tonight's Hold the Line. The No Spin News with Bill O'Reilly is up next. Shields high.